All right, let's dive in. We're tackling the paradox of free will today.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's an article with a really fascinating take on free will.
Hmm.
You know, that age-old question, do
Hmm.
we actually have free will, or are we
Right.
all just kind of on a set path?
Yeah.
And what I like about this article is that it takes this concept
Uh-huh.
and looks at it from a very, like, practical, experience-based perspective.
So not so theoretical.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
not just like a bunch of abstract philosophical ideas. It's
Right.
really about like, okay, how does this play out
Yeah.
in our actual lives?
I like that.
And one of the things that I thought was really interesting is that it talks about these two paths.
Okay.
And they're represented by like the tree of knowledge and the
Ah.
tree of life.
That's cool imagery.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah, I like that.
So tell me, what are these two paths all about?
Okay, well, so the tree of knowledge represents the path of like the intellect, the ego.
Okay.
So it's all about logic and analysis,
Okay.
trying to like control outcomes.
Got it.
And then the tree of life is more about intuition,
Okay.
emotional intelligence, going with the flow.
Okay, so it's like two very different ways of kind of moving through the world and making decisions.
Yeah.
So how does this connect to the idea of free will then? Because it seems like on both of those paths,
Yeah.
you're still making choices.
Right. That's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
So the article introduces these two archetypes, the villain and the hero.
Okay.
And the villain
Yeah.
is driven by logic
Yeah.
and this like need to control everything.
Okay.
And they might think they're exercising free will,
Right.
but their actions are actually kind of predetermined
Oh, interesting.
by their past conditioning, their fears.
So they're making choices, but the choices are coming from this very limited place.
Exactly, yeah. Almost like pre-programmed.
Right, and that kind of leads to like that suffering that the article talks about,
Oh.
like the abyss or hell.
Yeah, it's like they're trapped in a cycle that they can't escape.
Right, exactly. So it's like, are you really free if you're just reacting to like your past programming?
Right, and that's the question.
Yeah.
So the hero, on the other hand,
Okay.
follows their intuition, follows their soul-level desires, and that's where things get kind of mystical.
All right, let's go there.
So the article says that fulfilling these desires leads to a reunification of fractured parts of the soul.
Whoa, 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 hold on. Fractured parts of the soul. What does that even mean?
Right. Sounds intense.
Yeah, like is my soul literally broken?
Not necessarily, but, well, think about a time when you felt like totally aligned
Okay.
with your actions and your values.
Yeah.
Like every part of you was like, yes, this is it.
Okay, yeah, I can kind of picture that.
And there's that feeling of wholeness,
Right.
inner peace.
Uh-huh.
That's what they're talking about with this reunification.
Okay, so it's not like my soul's in pieces. It's more like it's not completely whole.
Exactly. It's about integrating all aspects of ourselves.
Okay.
The logical,
Yeah.
the emotional, the intuitive.
Right, right. And then acting from that place of wholeness.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how this ties back to the whole free will thing.
Uh-huh.
Because if we're like constantly battling ourselves
Yeah.
and second guessing our intuition,
Right.
are we really free?
That's a great point. And the article makes this distinction between like wants
Okay.
and desires.
Okay, so what's the difference?
So wants are those kind of superficial things,
Yeah.
driven by the ego,
Okay.
external influences.
Uh-huh.
But desires, those come from like a deeper place. It
Gotcha.
comes from the soul.
So how do we know the difference? How do we know if we're like chasing a want
Right.
or if it's a true like soul level desire?
It's tricky, but the article says that true desires, like they resonate with us on a deep level.
Okay.
They might even kind of scare us.
Oh,
Yeah, because they often require us to like step outside our comfort zone,
okay.
challenge our limiting beliefs.
So it's like if your dreams don't scare you, they aren't big enough.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so on this hero's path then, free will is about aligning our choices with those desires.
Yes.
Even if they're scary.
Even if they're scary. And it also involves like a certain degree of surrender.
Wait, surrender. Hold on a second. Didn't we just talk about how the villain's path is all about being controlled
Right.
by external things?
Right.
How does surrendering lead to freedom? It seems like the opposite.
It does, doesn't it? And that's why it's called the paradox of free will.
Okay.
Right. So on the hero's path, surrender isn't about giving up
Okay.
your power.
Yeah.
It's about aligning yourself with like a greater force, a flow that's already guiding us toward like our highest potential.
Oh, trusting that there's something bigger at play, even if we can't see the whole picture.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I can see how that could be liberating, but that takes a lot of faith, doesn't it? Faith in ourselves or
Yeah.
faith in, I don't know, the universe, something bigger.
Right. Faith in something beyond our understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where that whole dreaming thing comes in, right?
Right.
The article talked about that,
Uh-huh.
but it's not just about like, sleeping and having dreams.
No.
It's more about like a way of being.
Yeah, it's a way of thinking.
So can you explain that a little bit more?
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
dreaming in this context is about quieting the mind
Okay.
and like tapping into your intuition.
Uh-huh.
It's about creating space for like inspiration for insights to come through
Okay.
without overthinking, without logic.
So have you ever had like a flash of insight
Oh, yeah.
while you're like in the shower or something?
All the time.
Yeah, me too. It's like the answer just kind of pops into your head.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
That's your dreaming mind at work.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's that part of us that's connected to something deeper.
Okay, so dreaming is a way to like access those desires and gain clarity on, what path we're supposed to be on.
Exactly.
Okay. But what about when things get tough? Because, life isn't always easy.
Right.
So how do we deal with like the challenges, the setbacks?
Well, that's where this concept of emotional alchemy comes in.
Ooh, yeah. Okay. Tell me more about that.
So emotional alchemy,
Yeah.
it's about taking those raw experiences, the messy ones,
Uh-huh.
and transforming them into something valuable,
Oh,
something that helps us grow.
so not ignoring our difficult emotions,
No.
but actually like using them for something.
Exactly. It's like fuel for transformation.
Okay, I like that. But how do we actually do that?
That's a great question and one that deserves its own deep dive.
Okay, so stay tuned because we're going to get into emotional alchemy next time.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm excited for that.
Me too.
This is getting good. It's so interesting to me, this whole idea of surrender, like
Yeah.
we were saying with the hero's path,
No.
that could actually be the key to real freedom.
Right.
It kind of goes against everything we think,
It does. It's definitely a different way of thinking about free will.
Yeah, because part of me thinks like,
Yeah.
okay, if there's a plan, if everything's already decided,
Right.
that's kind of comforting in a way,
Yeah, like we're all part of something bigger.
Right, exactly. But then on the other hand, I'm like,
Yeah.
does that mean we're just puppets?
Right. Like we have no choice.
Yeah,
It's a question that like people have been wrestling with forever,
yeah,
trying to figure out how can we have a plan
right.
and still have free will?
It's like, how can both of those things be true?
Exactly. It's a real paradox.
It's like those optical illusions,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like the one where you can see a vase or two faces,
Hmm.
but you can't see both at the same time.
Right. You have to choose which one to focus on.
Yeah, and maybe that's the key to this whole free will thing, too.
Interesting.
Like maybe it's not about choosing one side or the other, but about being able to see both perspectives.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
And the article talks about like understanding our desires
Right.
as being a big part of this.
Yeah, knowing the difference between those surface wants and those deeper soul level desires.
Right, because those soul desires are what lead to that feeling of wholeness.
Exactly. It's like all the pieces come together.
Yeah, yeah. And so maybe choosing to act on those desires,
Yes,
that's where the real free will comes in.
I think you're right.
So it's not about like, having unlimited choices every second,
Right.
but about choosing the direction of our lives.
Yeah, the big picture.
Yeah, and then
Big picture.
choosing the path.
Okay, yeah, and I can see how surrender plays into that.
How so?
Well, it's like instead of fighting against the current,
Yeah,
we can choose to go with the flow.
trust the process.
Yeah, trust that there's something bigger guiding us.
And that can be really freeing,
It can. It's like on the villain's path, you're always struggling, always trying to control things.
Yeah, and that creates so much suffering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But on the hero's path, there's this sense of ease.
Uh-huh. Because you're aligned with, like, the natural order of things.
You're working with it, not against it.
Okay, this is all making so much sense.
Good, I'm glad.
But I still have one big question.
Okay, what is it?
How do we even know what our soul desires are?
Right.
Our minds are so busy and noisy all the time.
Yeah, it's hard to hear that inner voice sometimes.
Exactly. So how do we quiet the noise and really tap into that deeper wisdom?
Well, that's where the practice of dreaming comes in.
Okay, but like we were talking about before, it's not just about sleep.
No, it's a way of being.
So how do we actually do that?
Well, it's about creating space for intuition,
Okay.
for creativity to come through.
Uh-huh.
Think about those times when you're like doing something completely unrelated
Yeah.
and the answer to a problem just pops into your head.
Oh, yeah. Like when you're washing dishes or taking a walk.
Exactly.
It's like magic.
It is kind of magical. That's your dreaming mind at work.
Wow.
It's that part of us that's connected to something deeper.
So it's not about forcing it,
No, it's about being open.
being receptive.
Exact.
And that's what allows us to really trust the process, right?
Yeah, to go with the flow.
It's interesting because we always think of the hero's journey as this like big adventure.
challenging.
Right, like fighting dragons and stuff.
Exactly.
But maybe the biggest challenge is internal.
I like that.
It's the struggle to quiet the mind.
To let go of control.
Yeah,
To trust in something bigger.
because that's scary, you know?
It is. It takes courage.
So it's not about conquering the outside world,
Right.
but mastering ourselves.
That's the real battle.
Wow, okay, this is really blowing my mind.
I know. It's a lot to take in.
So just to recap,
Yeah.
we have these two paths. The villain's path of control and suffering,
Uh-huh.
and the hero's path of surrender and freedom. And the choice comes down to, like, are we willing to align with those soul desires?
Really listen to that inner voice.
Yeah, and to practice dreaming.
To create space for those insights.
And to, like, embrace the paradox.
To accept that both things can be true.
Okay, I think I'm getting it.
Good.
But there's one more piece we need to talk about.
Okay, what's that?
Emotional alchemy.
Ah, yes. Emotional alchemy.
It's not just a mystical idea. Right?
No, it's very practical.
So how do we actually do it?
Well, that's what we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
All right, I can't wait.
It's going to be good.
All right, let's get into this emotional alchemy thing.
Yeah, let's do it.
We've been talking about all these big concepts,
Mhm.
free will, destiny,
Yeah.
surrendering to something bigger.
Right.
But how does that actually play out
Right.
in our everyday lives?
So that's where emotional alchemy comes in.
Okay.
It's about taking those raw experiences,
Yeah.
sometimes messy, sometimes painful,
Uh-huh.
and transforming them into something.
That helps us grow. So it's not about ignoring our difficult emotion.
Not at all. It's about using them.
Okay, using them how?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
We often see like fear, sadness, anger,
Yeah, all the bad stuff.
right, as things to avoid,
Uh-huh.
like a problem to be fixed.
Right, yeah, right.
But what if those emotions are actually trying to tell us something?
Interesting.
Like they have a message
Okay.
that can help us understand ourselves better.
So instead of saying, I shouldn't be feeling this way, it's
Right.
more like, okay, I'm feeling this. What can I learn?
Exactly. Bring it into the light of your awareness.
Okay.
Allow yourself to feel it.
That sounds kind of hard, though.
It can be.
Sometimes those emotions are so intense.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming.
What do we do then?
Well, that's where self-care comes in.
Right, taking care of yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And having support, like a therapist.
Yeah, or even just like a friend you can talk to.
Absolutely. Or journaling, being in nature.
Right, anything that helps you process.
Yeah, process those feelings in a healthy way.
So it's not about like rushing to feel better.
No, it's about honoring your own pace.
Okay.
It's a journey,
Yeah, not a destination.
and there will be ups and downs.
Yeah, that's life, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The key is to keep practicing.
Keep practicing.
Keep trusting yourself.
Okay, so we've got awareness,
Yeah.
self-care, trust. What else is important for this emotional alchemy?
Forgiveness.
Ooh, forgiveness.
Forgiving yourself.
Yeah,
Forgiving others.
that's tough.
It can be.
But I can see how it would be really freeing.
It is. Holding on to resentment just keeps you stuck.
Stuck in the past.
Exactly. Forgiveness allows you to let go
Yeah, to move on.
with more lightness.
It's like you're transforming that heavy energy
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
into something positive.
Exactly. And that's the power of emotional alchemy.
Okay, this is all great,
Mhm.
but I think it would be helpful to hear some like real life examples.
Yeah, sure. Can you give us a scenario?
Okay, so let's say you go through a really bad breakup.
Ooh, heartbreak. That's tough.
It is. But instead of letting that experience make you like bitter about love, you could use it as a chance to learn.
Ooh.
What do you really need in a relationship?
What are your boundaries?
Yeah, what are your deal breakers?
So it's about finding the lesson,
yeah,
the gift, even in the pain.
exactly.
That's another example.
Okay, let's say you have a big setback at work.
Okay, yeah, that's happened to all of us.
Instead of letting that crush your confidence,
Right.
you could use it to like reevaluate
Reevaluate
and
what?
goals. Maybe you need to adjust your path.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe this setback is actually pointing you in a new direction.
Okay, so even the bad stuff can be good?
Yeah. It's all about perspective.
This is really making me think
I'm
differently.
glad to hear that.
So to wrap up this whole deep dive into free will,
Yeah.
what's the main takeaway? If free will is an illusion on one path and surrender is freedom on the other, then maybe the real freedom is choosing which path to walk and using emotional alchemy to make every experience, good or bad, a step toward our best selves.
Wow, that's beautiful and so inspiring. Thanks for joining us on this journey, deep divers. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep using that emotional alchemy to create a life you love.